Good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay family, we're rising out of the ashes together. Our topic on this evening is anger. Um, and I really don't think there's too much we need to add to make it a longer sentence or anything else. The topic is anger. And we have with us our co-host this evening is Miss Ingrid Gentles. So glad that she is here. And our guest for the evening is Dr. Marie McDonald, who I'm grateful that she's with us this evening as well. And I want to start off by saying that this is the first part of a two-part conversation. So wherever we leave off tonight, we are going to pick it up on next week because I believe that this is something that really deserves more attention than what we can actually give it. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guests or our hosts, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. You can also text us if you have any questions or comments to the number 437-778-3299. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, local organizations, or your faith community, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And Love Bay family, I am asking if you would please send in those resources to us. I've been trying to find more resources around the globe, and it's hard for me to do. I'm in the United States, and it's hard for me to pull information in all the places that I would love to be able to get to. So if you have information that you can share with us, that we can again share with the entire Love Bay family, we would appreciate that so much. And with that, I want to give Ingrid a moment to introduce herself to you, Love Bay family, on tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, Tia. As mentioned, my name is Ingrid Gentles, and I am retired. I'm a grandma, multi-grandma more than once, more than twice. And I just wanted to share that since I left the world of 32 years of being in the corporate world, I went into the field of chaplaincy. And so that has given me an opportunity to work in the community, work closely with people on a one-on-one or within a group setting, depending on the nature of the needs that are out there. And based on the discussion that we're going to be having today, I will be so honored to continue with this conversation because I've come across anger out there in the field while working in chaplaincy, and I've seen how it has demonstrated and showed up in so many different ways and how it's been handled in so many different ways. So I look forward to this show.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Marie, if you would greet our listeners on this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Marie McDonald, and I'm a former banker for almost 30 years in the field and retired, and now serving as president of Global Chaplaincy Center here in the Bahamas, where we are now celebrating 4 years as an organization operating under the laws of the Bahamas. And we are so excited about that. And we have the opportunity of helping persons that are in need. Actually, my ministry started out as an evangelist. I've been evangelizing for many years, Tia. So from the evangelist and now in chaplaincy, and it gives us an opportunity for a broader reach doing the chaplaincy work. So I'm so grateful to be on the program tonight and to be able to share from my experience having to counsel with people that are going through situations and, even having to deal with some of them myself. So it's such a pleasure to be here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we want to start by sharing some resources, and then we will move right into our topic. First, we want to share Pastor Darius Daniels. He's the pastor of Change Church. His website is dariusdaniels.com. He has locations in Florida, Atlanta, and New Jersey. His YouTube channel is Darius Daniels TV. We also have the Befrienders Volunteer Action to Prevent Suicide. To find a helpline by your country, you can visit their website, which is befrienders.org. In the United States, we have the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Their website is thehotline.org. Their phone number is 1-800-799-7233. And in Canada, we have the Canadian Women's Foundation. Their website is canadianwomen.org. And their phone number is 1-866-293-4483. And with that, Love Bay family, we move into our topic on this evening, which is anger. And the first thing that I really want to say, I want to convey, anger is not domestic violence. Domestic violence itself is about power and control. And anger itself, anger is actually a healthy and normal emotion that can be expressed properly and maturely. Now, some of us need to learn how to do that. But again, anger itself is not domestic violence. And actually, earlier in the week, as I was preparing for tonight, I happened to watch a movie. It just came up, and I saw the title of it. The title was "The Fire That Took Her," and immediately when I saw the title, I knew, what it was about. And so I watched the movie, and the movie was about Judy Malinowski. She was a 31-year-old woman. Judy had 2 daughters. She lived in Ohio, and on August 2nd, 2015, her boyfriend doused her with gasoline, and 30 seconds later, he lit her on fire. She survived for 2 years. She suffered burns over 95% of her body, but she survived for 2 years. She was able to record by video her own testimony that was used as evidence in her murder trial after she passed away, after her death. And when I watched that, what it made me think of, and I've been holding this just all week, just thinking of what we were going to talk about tonight. The actions of her boyfriend, that was not anger. That was not an angry moment. That was domestic violence. And anger management courses will not only not help an abuser, but anger management courses will empower an abuser. Anger management courses will teach an abuser tactics to further victimize individuals. I just cannot clearly express enough the difference between the two. And I can't express how hurtful it was to watch that movie, to know that this is not just a story, this is real life. This woman had to be weaned off of medications so she could testify, so she could be lucid. So to imagine the physical pain that she was in, the mental and emotional pain that she was in, it hurt me, and I did not know her. I did not know her. I did not know of her story until I saw this movie. But you think of her parents, you think of her mother and her father, and think of her children, her 2 daughters that saw her go through this, her sisters. And you think of herself, her own life. Her clothes melted into her body. I've talked to individuals on different occasions. I've been told that the stance that I take is too severe, that I'm too serious. And I always ask the question, well, how lightly am I supposed to take this? Because what I do, this area that I work in, what I see, people die. Parents die, children die. Individuals, they not only lose their lives, but those who have a semblance of a life, they lose their finances, they lose their possessions, they lose their sense of themselves. And this is not because a person was angry. It's violence. So my response is always, I can't be too serious about this, because if I take this too lightly, and what I do, the people that I come into contact with, me brushing off something very simple um, could very well lead to somebody being hurt in ways that they just cannot come back from. And with that, I want to say that most of the time, domestic violence is not this one huge incident that happens. It usually builds over time. So it does start with smaller incidences that build over time. So it's those small incidences that I know will grow into something that is of a magnitude that could cost someone their life. I can't take it. I can't take it lightly. But again, just on our topic on tonight, Dr. Marie, I would ask you if you could first please, for our Love Bay family, if you could define anger. Can you define anger and describe anger in its proper use and proper context?
Yes, Tia, anger, according to the dictionary, states that it's an emotional character. It's an emotional thing that it can be, unless if we cannot control it, it can just be a serious outburst, and it's a strong situation. But it's a strong feeling actually of being upset, a strong feeling of being upset over something that perhaps you or the individual may feel they cannot control, or it's just against their wish. So instead of being able to control themselves, there's that outburst of anger toward that thing or that person. So because that the individual that is angry may be feeling that someone is actually deliberately doing something wrong to them. So that's their way of expressing how I feel. I'm angry. And it's okay to be angry, Tia, provided we control it. But when we are angry to the point where we are crazy out of our minds, cannot control, and I've seen people, get to that point. And when you cannot control yourself, that's madness. And that's the side when it's not good. Because anger in that form, we can destroy people. And just listening to you with the story, with the domestic violence coupled with anger, you know, it can do great harm, you know. So that is what anger is. It's an emotion, and it's okay to get angry, but how we deal with it is what matters.
Yes. So, Ingrid, you want to add to that?
I concur. I agree with what Dr. McDonald um, just said. I know that, as you mentioned earlier on, anger it's a part of us. It's part of our human nature. It's intrinsic to who we are as human beings. And, the word of God says, be angry, but do not sin, from a biblical perspective, I'm coming from. So it's very clear that anger, it's okay to be angry. It's what you do with those feelings and emotions after that is the problem. And as Dr. McDonald just mentioned, when an individual is unable to manage their anger, their emotional intelligence to communicate and to deal with their own inner feelings and look inwards, then they project it on their spouse, their partner, whatever the object is, and they lash out. And as mentioned, that can show up in so many ways. You just mentioned someone, lady just went through a horrible experience with that. So for me, it's that anger is not a negative. It's not necessarily a positive. It depends on how you respond and how you deal with those emotions and feelings. That will determine that.
Yes. And so I agree, and I wholeheartedly believe, again, anger is a normal, healthy emotion that we have. We just need to know how to process it, how to express it in a correct way. And when I think of anger, when I think of domestic violence, I think the biggest thing that stands out to me. So, Dr. Marie, you mentioned control. So when I think of domestic violence, there is a level of control when I have seen and when abusers make a choice. Even in my own situation, I could see when my abuser, he made a clear cut choice to do what he did to me, but not do those things to other people. The way that he treated me, the things that he said to me, he would keep himself in check if a police officer was standing in front of him, if he was at work and dealing with his managers or supervisors, if other men were around. He made a choice to handle whatever he was feeling, whatever he was thinking, to keep that in check. And then when I was isolated, when it was just me, he made another choice to uh, to be violent toward me in whatever manner. So I do believe when we're talking about domestic violence, there is a choice that abusers make. And I think for individuals, because some individuals may say it was just whatever, I was acting out of passion. I just became so upset. I was just in a blind rage. You weren't in a blind rage instantly. Something happened. It was a buildup. And I believe in the beginning of a buildup, you can make a choice. I'm going to just go full hedge into my emotions right now, or I'm going to get a hold of myself. And too many people make the decision to not keep themselves in control, and their actions and their words end up hurting another person. And sometimes the damage is irreparable, and it may not be physical, it could be mental, it could be emotional. But there are some things that are done. Once it's done, that's it. You can't take it back. You can't fix it. Um, but having said that, having made that statement, Ingrid, I would ask you, how can anger be expressed in a healthy manner within a marriage and within relationships? I, 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 I just really believe we cannot give individuals the excuse or let them use the excuse, be it male or female. I was just so angry, I flew off the handle. That I just don't believe society can just let that fly. We just can't. So again, and within a marriage or within relationships, can you define anger in that way and how it can be expressed in a proper context?
Yeah. Tia, as you mentioned earlier on, it's a choice. It really is. There comes a point when you are getting to that place. That is the opportunity and the time for you to stop before it goes beyond that level of abuse. And so I have to say in agreement with you that it is a choice. Our judicial system, however, I studied criminal law, is that, we have the words actus reus, mens rea, and they talk about the actus reus when someone kills or harms someone. So the actus reus is that it happens in the heat of passion and they couldn't control themselves and they just lost it and they kill someone, right? And then they've got the mens rea, where that individual mentally, purposefully, as you mentioned earlier on, Tia, makes that choice, plots it, work out the whole issue in their head as to how they're going to hurt you, how they're going to harm you, or how they might kill you, right? And so the law makes a distinction between the two. There's the actus reus, just loss of control. Some people say a temporary insanity. Some people call that temporary insanity. And then there's the mens rea, where the individual is fully aware of what they're doing and they plan and execute their actions with preciseness, and do major harm to their spouse or to their partner.
Mhm.
And that is unfortunate. I do agree with you, and I do believe that there is a point, even within myself, when I experience anger within myself, I know when I'm getting to that point. I know when I'm getting to that point where I can just choose to stop, walk away, or just be silent. But there are times when I chose to go beyond that warning sign because I wanted to let that person experience and feel the hurt that they're inflicting on me.
Mhm.
So it is a choice. I know there are circumstances where the law says someone can have a moment of temporary insanity and just lose it for that moment and lash out. But most of the time, I do believe as human beings, we have a choice. We're not animals. We have the ability to reason.
Mhm.
God created us. We have intelligence. We have the ability to reason. We know what's wrong. We know what's right. We know when our emotions, our feelings, we know what our body's telling us. We have the ability to gauge that. And so, as human beings, that's what sets us apart from animals.
Yes.
So, when we respond in this animalistic way and torturing people and burning them up and cutting them up and all these gory stuff that they do, that is a choice.
Mhm.
As far as I'm concerned, that is a choice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so just within the confines of a relationship and a marriage. Now, when we deal with domestic violence, I'm very clear to any and everyone. If you are in any danger, then you need to seek out whatever help you need for yourself to remove yourself, your children, family members out of that situation. But every relationship is not domestic violence. There are some individuals who are wholeheartedly just dealing with something that made them angry. You made me angry, this made me angry, and now we have to deal with it. So in that healthy context, in
Mhm,
that healthy context, in a
mhm,
marriage or
mhm,
a relationship, um, how would you advise? And Dr. Donald McDonald, I would ask you the same thing. How would you advise a couple to deal
mhm,
with their anger? Because when you're talking about relationships, this
mhm,
person knows you, so you know what to say, or you know how to say it to really inflict some harm if that's what you're trying to do. And if you're trying to do that, that's abuse. But if it's
mhm,
just an issue, we just need to calm down, talk about this, it's a problem. How can you
mhm,
safely do that without crossing into um, being violent with each other?
mhm.
You, Tia, you said something. You said something earlier about, or John, I'm not sure. Um, when um, the person was in the presence of other individuals, no anger. It was only when it was with you that that
Yeah.
anger showed up. And it tells me that that individual, unless they sit and talk with someone, usually it's deep seat hurt and anger. And it's like you bullying on this one individual because you know they're not going to retaliate. But we have to, when persons are going through situations like that, they must, the first thing, the individual, and that's provided they are reasonable, stop and think. We will always have conflict, but if they stop and think, um, it will help. Or otherwise, count 10 backwards, or just find something to do. Sometimes for me, I would look at the individual and I would try to look at something to see what I can see about them. How can I show this person love? What is that this individual going through? Right? So you cannot just beat down on somebody out of anger unless you first deal with the problem that is inside that you're dealing with. And I think that's where it really stems, Tia,
Mhm.
for various reasons. We don't understand why, what is it they're carrying, because usually these people do not share their feelings as to what is driving them to that anger point, you know. So, but the best thing for couple is to stop and think before you speak. And perhaps that will help. But when you have it at another level, they say anger comes in 3 levels. When you're at that explosion, I don't know if there's anything you can help say unless you have an intervention, you know.
Right. And Ingrid, would you add to that?
Yeah. Listen, you're
Sure,
going to cut this off and get your
sure.
tail out here. Do you understand when they talk? I don't care.
So, Dr. Marie.
I believe it's imperative to turn our lens inwardly. I believe it's imperative that we turn our lens inwardly. you know, by objectively examining our actions and the situation that we're facing. We've got to do an internal check quickly and
Yes.
objectively examine our actions and what's happening around us, the situation that we're being faced with. I think when we're able to do that effectively, that equips us with rational judgments rather than, coming to an impulsive type reaction,
Yes.
So just just taking that moment to objectively examine ourselves and our actions and the situation that we're facing would help a lot. Dr. Murray mentioned counting to 10, as one approach. But I do believe it's imperative that each individual turn their lens inwardly quickly and just get an assessment of what's going on within themselves and what's going on within their spouse. And, that equips you, to be rational, to make a rational judgment rather than stirring up, and coming to a place of explosion of an impulsive reaction when you now cause harm to your spouse.
Yes.
So that moment, you need to take that moment to do that inwardly check.
So I agree wholeheartedly with everything the two of you just said. To take the lens and turn it inwardly. And again, Love Bay, we are talking about dealing with anger in a healthy way. We're not talking about domestic violence. We're talking about being an adult, dealing with your anger. If it's a one-off situation, something made you angry, you have to deal with it. If you find that this is your normal, you're always angry, something is always setting you off, you have a deeper issue that you need to deal with. So Ingrid, you just said to turn that lens inwardly, to do an internal check. And Dr. Marie, you mentioned things that we could do, for instance, counting backwards. That works. It actually works. I have done it and I do it. It works because it gives me, a few seconds to calm down. I've also learned to not respond immediately, to not respond immediately to a text, to not respond immediately to a phone call, to not respond immediately to an email. If something rises within me when I see or hear those words, I've learned I need to figure out why I feel what I feel, because I very well could have read something into the situation that wasn't there. And so there have been plenty of times I've had to slow down and just wait. Maybe I respond the next day. Maybe I don't respond at all, or I just give myself some time. But there have been a few times where I had to be honest, where it wasn't the other person. It wasn't what they said. It was me. I was bringing something that should not have been there. And then I had to go back and think, well, why did I bring it? Where did that come from? And for me, a lot of times I'm still dealing with, my past and what I had to deal with, dealing with domestic violence. And that's not an easy thing. And so it's like, and I always say healing is a journey. It's a process that you are always on. This is an everyday thing. It doesn't stop. I think when you get to that point, if you get to that point and you say, I'm good, I'm okay, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that doesn't mean you have to be sitting with a counselor every single day, but I do believe it means that you have to be mindful of yourself. You have to be mindful of your actions. Because there have been times someone said or did something that was completely and totally innocent, but I was in a different headspace and I didn't receive it in the way that it was intended. And I have to acknowledge that. I've had to acknowledge that. And then there are times when something was said or done, it was wrong, but I didn't have to respond to it the way that I did, or I don't have to respond to it the way that I feel or the way that I want to. And I just really believe, even removing domestic violence from the situation, there comes a point in time where we just need to be adults.
Yeah.
We need to grow up. We can't make excuses for ourselves and for other people. We can't say, "Oh, that's how I am. I'm just like that. My mother was like that." That's not okay. It doesn't fly. And the whole hand clapping, neck snapping thing, I can't stand that. That gets on my nerves. I cannot stand that. There is nothing mature. There's nothing cute. There's nothing intelligent about that. You don't have to. You do not have to present yourself in that way to get a point across. I'm sorry, I can't stand it. It gets on my nerves. And I think, things that we do, whether we want to be animated or not, we can inflame a situation.
Sure.
We can make it worse.
Of course.
The way that you respond, even if the other person is in the wrong, you can make it worse. So,
Absolutely.
at some point there does come a time when you do just have to be an adult. And sometimes it sucks. I mean, it doesn't feel good, all the time, but I believe in the end, it's worth it because it's your character. It's your integrity. It's who you are. It's how you're seen, and so you can have an off moment and then maybe someone else will be able to know something's wrong and they can offer their help or give you a little bit of space, because it's an off time. But you can't just say, it is what it is, take me or leave me the way that I am. And no matter how many people you've hurt along the way, that, that's just, it's not okay. It's just not. We have to take responsibility for ourselves and not leave, bodies in the wake, not caring what's happened.
If I may say, Tia, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, if I may say, just to what you just said here, I just wanted to add to that, that it is what it is, and that's the way I am, is a cop-out. Because when someone makes those statements, it's because they don't want to see the truth about themselves. It is easier to deflect, to cast it, to make excuses, to blame someone else. Because to look at one's inner self requires a lot of strength.
Yes.
It does. Because to see things in yourself that you don't particularly like or care for and have to admit that, not to anyone else, but to yourself, it's very difficult for a lot of people, for most people. So what they do is they deflect. She made me do this. It was her. It was him. It was this. Just not to deal with themselves and their shortcomings. And they're doing themselves a major injustice. Because I'm telling you, there's nothing more wonderful than self-care, self-reflection, becoming that higher version of yourself, weeding out the things that you see in you that someone doesn't necessarily have to point out to you, but if they do, take it into consideration. Look at it, be truthful, recognize what it is, call it what it is, and then work on it. But a lot of people find it extremely painful, especially if they've had a very difficult childhood. They find it very, very painful to actually go inwardly and look at who they are as a person.
Yeah, it is hard. Dr. Marie, did you want to add?
Yeah, and I want to add to that because that is the reason why so many people are angry, because rather than let it go, it's a comfort. It's like something to hang on to. I have a right to this. And then there's self-pity. And once you get to that point, you just want to hug it. And it's hard to let it go. So, like you say, then the next thing is, this is who I am. It's not who you are. Because the thing is, what I see is that usually when people are angry, it is for some reason. Something happened in their lives. Maybe they have no control, whatever it is. something happened. But rather than deal with it, it's just that continuous anger that spews out of the person. So we have to just deal with whatever is causing that anger. And if it means peeling back several layers of your life down to your childhood, wherever it is, we have to find where it's coming from and deal with it. It
Yes.
cannot go away on its own.
Mhm. And Love Bay, it doesn't feel good. It
No.
doesn't, and it's very hard. Um, but it's a work that needs to be done. On this past summer, someone sent I received a message, and as soon as I read that message, I was livid. I mean,
Mhm.
my breathing pattern changed. I could feel my heart beating in my chest. I was sitting down. I jumped up. I automatically stood up. I was hot. Now, what the person communicated was absolutely wrong, but I knew instantly within me I should not have felt the way that I felt.
Mhm.
I knew that there was more going on, and so I had to take some time. I had to take a few days, and I had to think about this, and I had to go through, and I had to talk. I had to talk it out, um, and I really had to realize there were some things that came back to me that were hurting me because of the domestic violence. And so,
Mhm.
Lovely, again, as I've said, this is a process. It does not go away. I have been away from my ex-husband for 9 years now. I'm okay. I'm safe. But there are times when I have moments and I have to go through a process of forgiveness again. I have to go through the process dealing with memories or flashbacks, panic attacks, whatever it is. Like it's just not over. Things happen and I have to deal with it. But it did not feel good for me to take time and say something in me is not right. And I had to be honest with me, and I had to think about this. I had to say words out loud to myself. I talked with individuals, that I trusted, and I worked through it. And when I worked through it, I could see I had some residual, um, and
Mhm.
not just anger. Like I could feel hate that just came again. And I do believe that you can get to a point where you honestly forgive and you are honestly in a good place, and then you find yourself you're back in it. And maybe you have to do some forgiveness again, or you have to just work through some more issues, or whatever. But again, as we said before, healing is not a straight line. It's not linear.
Mhm.
It goes all over the place. And this summer, I found myself in a place where I did not like it. It did not feel good, and I had to deal with that within me, because no person, no thing I know should have made me feel that angry. My breathing pattern should not have changed. I should not have physically had to stand up and move around. Um,
Mhm.
I know that that was an agitation. Way more was in that than what this person said. And so I had to deal with what was really going on in me. Um, and again, it's not an easy thing, but it's worth it when you work through it. And when you work through it every time, because it's not a one and done issue. It's not. Just as adults, there are different areas of your life where you have to work at it. And, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't.
Mhm.
And we know what to do. Sometimes we don't know what to do, but we figure it out and we keep moving forward. It is hard work. It does
Yes.
not feel good. It doesn't. But we can't make excuses for ourselves. Like it is what it is, and you just have to deal with it. You won't get far in life that way. Even if you look good on the outside, you
Mm.
will not get far within you operating that way. And I also believe that anger can start off as someone being hurt. Your anger, it really can start off as you in some kind of way holding on to whatever it is that was done to you. And it doesn't have to be domestic violence. It could have been a slight word or a situation, but it could be hurt that was not acknowledged for whatever reason. And if that hurt was not acknowledged, and if it's not dealt with, that can lead to what we define as being angry as well. And so with that, Dr. Marie and Ingrid, I would ask you if you could both speak to the importance of dealing with issues, and not ignoring them,
Mhm.
um, hoping they'll go away, hoping it'll just be fine and you'll just automatically feel better without actually dealing with it.
I think that is the problem right now, that we are facing so many anger in relationships. Persons are not dealing with issues. Sometimes an issue comes up, and rather than deal with the issue, it's just bottled inside. So if we do not approach it, if we do not deal with it, then we will continue to have anger issues. My thing is, if someone cause you to become upset or do something that is wrong, deal with that. When you finish with, and my mom is just like that. I was telling someone about her just this week. If something happens and she doesn't like it, she's going to let you know. She may come across very strong, but at the end of the day, it's over. She has released it and her life goes on. We often do not deal with it, and we feel if we have to deal with issues, we cannot speak. We argue, we row the person rather than talk to the individual. And because of that, we just bottle up. But it's always good. If something hurts you, you dislike something, let the other person know. I don't like this. I don't like it when you do this, you know, or, we don't want to draw attention to you, but I don't like it. That's simple as that. And if we do that often enough, it will cut a lot of anger issues that comes up in relationship.
Hmm. You
For
know,
example,
and just with what,
if your wife burns eggs, you know, sorry, if she burned the egg for you during breakfast, just talk about it. Do not allow her about it. Talk to her. Let her know the egg was a little too overcooked. You know, it doesn't have to be a fight.
Say it
Yeah,
nicely because you might not ever get eaten.
you may not eat egg after. I agree. That may be the last one. That may be the last one. Yes.
oh, that was too much. That was a good one. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, in keeping with what Dr. Marie's saying, Taya, you know, um, I am very much like your mother, Dr. Marie. I'm someone that it's very difficult for me to hold something in if it's affecting me or bothering me. But there are times when we are required to do that. And so what I'm going to say is that I do agree with you because I am just like her in that way. However, there's some people that are people pleasers and they don't handle confrontation very well.
Mhm.
And so they internalize things, they keep it in, and it comes out in so many different ways. Because now they go to their minds and their perceptions are telling them all kinds of things. They're formulating the story in their head that is absolutely not even in alignment with what took place. But they have convinced themselves because they have not given an opportunity to confront and to discuss. And confront doesn't have to be in a negative way either.
Mhm.
Confrontation does not, when we hear the word confrontation, we apply this negative view of that. Confrontation does not have to, you can confront someone properly, respectfully. That's a confrontation. That is approaching a matter and dealing with the matter and letting the matter go. But we all have our issues, we all have our personality style and so forth. And so unfortunately, not everyone, from what I have seen, is able to make that transition of being able to speak to someone immediately when they're feel
Yeah.
hurt or feel damaged or affected in any way based on the other person's response or what's being said to them. I think we need to recognize that we don't always actually necessarily need an apology either. A lot of us wait for that apology. We want that apology because that apology makes us feel so much better. makes us feel like we've accomplished something. What if you don't get that apology?
Right.
What if you don't get that apology? And what happens to you? You break down because you are depending on that apology to free yourself. And so that is a very dangerous, and we all have, I know we've all fallen into that category at some point and time in our lives. But I've learned as I'm going on this journey, I gotta tell you, I'm learning that there are times when you may not get an apology, and that's okay. You've got to be okay with that because I'm telling you, if you don't master anger, it will master you.
Mhm.
It will become your master. You will be a puppet based on your negative feelings and emotions that's stirring inside of you. You're like a puppet. Anger is the one that's controlling you. And we need to get to that place to recognize, hold on a second, as Tia mentioned earlier on, hold on a second. This feeling that I'm having, my reaction is not that's not really right. You have to be able to do that because if you're not able to do that, anger will control you, anger will be your master, and it will just carry you along the string like a puppet on a string. And so it's really important. This is why I'm saying don't necessarily wait an apology. If you get one, wonderful.
Mhm.
Take it. If you get the acknowledgement, wonderful. But if you don't, release that person and work on yourself. Because when that person is just, they're not even thinking about what's going on within you. They're doing their own thing. And you're being eaten away inside, eating away, eating away, eating away. You need to manage yourself and your mental health and your self care for yourself in order to make this journey effective in terms of anger management.
Yes. And so I think what you said is just absolutely important. And there were two things that you said that I think is just, worth pulling out. The first is that we do have different personalities. We handle issues and conflict. We handle anger. We handle it in different ways. Even the same person can handle different situations differently. Like there are some things that could upset me, bother me, or anger could rise within me, and I'll deal with them differently. There are some things I know I need to deal with head on. Then there are other things that may bother me, and I feel like I'm good. I just know I need to change some things, and I won't let this happen again. And so we have to be respectful of our differences.
Yeah.
I had an issue happen, and someone, on the outside of the issue, kept pushing me to do it a bit different.
Mhm.
Like that's not what I need to do. Like I've made my decision. I'm okay. And what this person's interference actually did was make the situation worse than what it was, because I was good. I was okay. And now you're interfering because of what you think you see and what you think you understand, and you just made a situation that was okay, that could have just been left alone. You made it worse. So
Yep.
we need to respect each other's differences. And another thing that you said, you can't wait on an apology. Now, for all of us in some area, you full well deserve it. You full well deserve it. What was done to you was wrong. And Love Bay, on behalf of whomever did you wrong, I will apologize to you right now, because there are some people you will not hear the words "I'm sorry" from their lips. You will not hear "I apologize to you." And it burns me up to no end when I hear people say, "If I did something to you," or "I'm sorry you feel that way," not "I'm sorry that I did this to you," or "You feel this way because of what I did or because of what I said." So apologies may not come. And then I was listening to a message that Pastor Daniels did earlier this week. I can't remember the title of the message, but I believe it was the message that he preached on this past Sunday. But in that message, he made a point, and he said remorse and repentance are two different things. So some of us who are waiting on apologies, someone can apologize to you, and you may even accept it because they were remorseful. But was their heart repentive? And repent means to turn away, to change. So are you just sorry because you feel sorry because of what you did to me, but you want to keep doing it? Or are you actually going to change your behavior? Are you actually going to do this different? Because that makes a difference. Sometimes an apology means nothing if the behavior behind whatever hurt you does not change. And we need to be mindful of that. So we don't want to set yourself up, in the circle. He hurt me, she hurt me. He said sorry, she said sorry. Now let's go do it again. That's a whole nother mess,
Mm-hmm.
there that can lead into an abusive pattern, in that way. So you don't want to hear I'm sorry just to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as you said, Ingrid, you can't wait for an apology to carry on with your life. You have to get up and you have to go. Um, yes, and again, absolutely. Some people have done and said some things that were absolutely wrong in the church, in your home, in corporate America, at the bank, in the market, down the street, at the gas station. Yes, it was wrong, but you can't wait for what you may not get. And even if you get it, it might not mean anything. And you're worth more than that. You have to love yourself enough to do what you need to do for you, set your boundaries. One of my friends said that to me this afternoon. We were having a conversation. She said, you have to love you enough to put your boundaries in place and keep your boundaries and keep moving forward and just be okay. It means a lot. And so, Ingrid, as you said earlier, to look yourself in the mirror, look yourself in the face, and you have to be honest with you. That's a hard thing to do. I did this wrong. I could have did that better. I need to change this. I need to stop allowing this behavior to happen to me. I need to make some changes. I need to set boundaries and keep them, stop breaking them. It's hard. It's hard to do that. And I think it's even harder when you're really honest with yourself. And you really want to do it. I think, and Dr. Marie, I would ask you if you could even just speak on that point. I really believe when you're trying to do it the right way, it is hard.
Yes. We owe it to ourselves. If an individual is angry, we don't have to take on the problem. And this is something that I always share even with my students. If that person is angry, you're innocent, you don't have to take it on. You find out how you can help that individual, but at the same time, you cannot put that burden on yourself. So you have to be able to just let it go. Let it go. And I always say, just forgive them. When they come around, then they will understand. But if you keep that in your heart and you're not moving forward because you're hurting, because what did I do? Why is he acting that way? Why is she acting that way? And we continue playing it over in our heads. We're not going to go forward. But if we want to go forward, realize that that's their problem. I'm going forward. I'm going to release it. And when they're ready to speak about it, we can talk. And that's where you can have a peace of mind, because otherwise you would be just as, going around in circle, feeling hurt, but help that individual, forgive them. And some things may not be easy to forgive, but you have to release it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to release it. And that's what I find works for me. I cannot carry their burden, especially if I know I'm right. I didn't do wrong. But at the same time, I'm big enough to say, I let you go. I release it.
Ingrid, you want to add to that?
Sure, I will. Sometimes, we know forgiveness is required, but sometimes we confuse forgiveness in the sense that we need to understand. I think you mentioned this earlier on, Tia, that we can forgive someone, but we have to also recognize, depending on the depth of the injury, let me put it that way, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever way you're impacted, the healing part of it is a process. And sometimes when you're in that healing state, it may look like you have not really given forgiveness. I think people, I've often heard coming from the church, forgive and forget. The word of God says forgive and forget, and you move on, right? The word of God, you have to apply wisdom to the word of God. That's not what it meant. You are supposed to forgive, yes, but we also recognize that we're human beings. We have emotions. We're scarred. We can get triggered, right? And when we get triggered, guess what? We're going to respond. Trigger is a very real thing. right? And so we have to make sure that we don't confuse forgiving someone with the fact that we're still working out our issues. We're still working out the pain. We're still trying to heal ourselves, right? Because it may appear that you haven't because you're still working out your issues. I also believe that an apology without change is total manipulation.
Yes.
If someone keeps apologizing, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just so sorry. I apologize. Some people are just, I just call them the apologetic guru, right? Because they just keep apologizing, apologizing, and then they keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. That is total manipulation. That is not, that should not be accepted as far as I am concerned. So we need to be mindful of that. That yes, we want an apology, but we need to recognize how sincere that apology is.
Yes,
right.
absolutely. I believe what you said is very, very important. And um, I do not believe as healthy, normal adults, and then as adults who may have some issues, and then even younger people, I do not believe that there is a such thing as forgiving and forgetting.
Mhm.
We are not God. We our,
Correct.
our memories are not wiped clean. So I can forgive you, but I still remember what you did.
Yes.
I want to get to the point to where I remember what you did, but it's not hurting me.
Mhm.
It's not distracting me. It's not
Mhm.
paralyzing me.
Right.
And forgiveness and trust are two different things. I can
Mhm.
forgive you and not trust you. I can
That's
forgive
right.
you, and part of my boundaries may be you won't be in my personal space anymore, or
That's
you
right.
won't be in this area anymore, or I know not to do this with you or allow you to do that.
Mhm.
That's a real thing.
Yes.
And I believe, and Ingrid, as you said, someone who it's your thing, you just apologize over and
Yeah.
over again, that's abuse. That is
Yes.
manipulation. That's no, and it's not okay. Or you want to apologize and you don't allow a person the emotional space that they need to heal. You
Mhm.
can't hurt me and then want me to be okay and we can go out to the movies and or watch TV and everything is just fine. That's not
Mhm.
fair. You can't you can't push me into being okay with you. And I think
Yes.
that that is another difference between anger and domestic violence. Because
Yes.
if it's anger and you understand what you did was wrong, what you said was wrong, you have to give me my space.
Yes.
You have to let me, go through. I've had individuals who did or said something wrong and he just wanted me to immediately be okay. And just in general, I'm not that kind of person. I need time to process.
Mhm.
I,
Yes.
I do. I heard you when you said I'm sorry. I heard you when you asked for forgiveness, and I'm not holding it just because I want to. But I need you to give me a little bit of space right now, because
Yeah.
I got to process. And for me, the way that I think as I go through my life, I process everything through the lens of my experience, what I went through,
Mm.
domestic violence. And
Yeah.
so for me, and this won't be everyone, but this is my story. I have to process what you just said, how you said it, the way you said it. I have to I go through a whole thing in my mind. I have to determine, is this anger? Did this person just have an off moment? Or is this a pattern that I now need to recognize that's leading down a road to what
Mhm.
I've already been through?
Mhm.
That's not a small thing. So we have to give people their space, because if you're pushing me into forgiveness, if you just want me to forget about it and move past
Yeah.
it, or if you don't understand, I did forgive you, but oh, it's bothering me again, and I just need, I need a moment. Go into abuse. That's how you're trying to force me now to think what you want me to think and feel what you want me to feel. That's not okay.
Yeah.
It's not a healthy way
Yeah.
to operate in and deal with anger. Now, anger is there, but for me, if you want to push me or manipulate me into feeling what you want me to feel and doing what you want me to do, I already
Mhm.
see domestic violence all over it.
Yeah.
I see it all over it, and I steer clear. Um, you know,
Yes.
so we have to be mindful. We do have to be mindful. And we are coming up on the hour, and so I want to ask each of you to leave a final word on this topic. And as I said, we're going to pick this up on next week because we never cover everything on a single Friday, but I just felt that this was worth us coming back for. So I know Dr. Maria is going to be with us. I would love it, Ingrid, if you could be with us on next Friday, if it's possible. I believe Aaron, my co-host Aaron, is going to be with us on next Friday as well. But just for tonight, I'm going to ask each of you to leave Love Bay with some words. I want to say words of encouragement, because we can feel bad at times for feeling angry. And I think we try to express and state anger itself is not bad. It's not.
No.
It's how you handle it. And some people are made to feel guilty because they are angry, because they are hurt. And it's not fair. So I think on that note, on that level, I would ask each of you in your own way, Ingrid, if you would go first, to leave Love Bay with a positive thought on anger.
Absolutely. No, I just believe, and thank you so much. It's a wonderful show today. I appreciate that. I believe that our spiritual formation remains a lifelong journey. We are a work in progress, and we need to recognize it, and we need to give ourselves the grace, to recognize that we are a work in progress, and do not let anyone make you feel guilty for owning your feelings and for working through your feelings. We are human beings. We have the right to do that. As a matter of fact, working through your feelings is a part of this journey in becoming a better version of who you are as a person.
Yes. Dr. Marie?
Yes, and I just want to leave with persons, and you've said it, Tia, that when a person makes you angry, when a person steps into your place, you can forgive them, but you don't have to restore relationally. In other words, you can continue moving forward. You forgive them, release them, and you move forward with your life. So there are times you can help persons, but there are times you have to allow them to find their ways. As much as we want to help, we can only help so many. But the most important thing is to ensure that you remain sound, because we all have to deal with our situations. And if we do not want help, we cannot help those persons. So I wish to encourage those persons, especially those that may be angry, to deal with the situation and search wherever it's coming from and deal with it. And you will find that it's like a breath of fresh air once it's all gone. Yes.
Thank you so much. And Ingrid, you are the co-host of the Marriage Hour, I believe. So if you would just remind us of your program date and time, so listeners can know to tune into your program.
Actually, the marriage hour is Sundays. Every Sunday between 2 and 3 p.m. Dr. Dudley Myers is the host of the show, and Dr. Maria and myself have taken turns co-hosting with Dr. Myers. So every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m., please see us on the marriage hour on Love Bay Afrobeat Talk Radio.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes from our program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence TV. We thank you so much for joining Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we want you to remember that we are rising out of the ashes together. And we want you to remember that we are going to continue this conversation on next Friday. So everyone, have a good evening. Thank you.